Welcome to the 2023 Pipsy Media Box. I'm Iman Rapetti.
And I'm Gabriel Swanepoel from MasterCard in Southern Africa.
Gabriel, you've got a huge smile on your face. You still have incredible amounts of energy at the end of day one.
For what a fantastic gathering. It's just been awesome to meet everybody and see the stakeholders and some old friends. And it's what's not to like. It's a lot of passion in the air.
A lot of passion, but there's also a lot of jargon in the air. And, you know, when I think about these conversations, they're so exciting, so detailed, in some cases very technical. And then I think about the market outside of these doors. How do we make everything that's been said here, all these great innovative ideas, accessible to people who actually need to use them?
So I think that's a great question. And one that's got a multitude of answers, to be honest. I think that what we need to be cognizant of is the requirement to understand the pain points in the market today. And I think that nobody wakes up in the morning thinking about how to make a payment. We all want to have our problems solved, and we want to be able to go through life and have efficiency in these mundane processes that we have to go through. And the way to do that is really to understand the pain points of consumers. And the way to understand those pain points are then to stitch together all of the different components that, you know, come ultimately articulating to a value story. And for MasterCard, as an example, it's not just thinking about, you know, what is the next best thing in digital payments and thinking through that jargon, but actually thinking about how do we displace cash in a very real way, and how do we bring more people into the economy.
Digital and financial literacy, even in the world, you know, in which we live right now, is something that is beyond the reach of many people. And as we keep moving into innovation, disruption, a more sophisticated network of transacting, it's very important, as you've just said, to keep those communities in tandem with the conversation. The thing that a lot of people stay up at night thinking about is their credit card payments. Well, let's talk about credit cards and the future of credit cards. Massive pool of money. I think annually it's estimated at north of $13 trillion in terms of all of the transactions. Some of those are coming from a point of sale and others from e-commerce. How does this universe of payments kind of fit in a truly authentic digital space?
So, Iman, I think what's important to note is the way that the market is evolving and the way that, you know, consumer behavior is changing. You know, 15 years or 20 years ago, before the advent of smartphones, you had a little piece of plastic and you could go and use it at a point of sale to dip it in. But the reality is today that's not true anymore. You know, we've got digital cards that's on our phones. We've got e-commerce transactions that happen across digital marketplaces. And, you know, you have a whole host of new subscription services that is predominantly paid by card. And so at the end of the day, it becomes a function of utility. And that function of utility is how well do we meet the needs of the consumer and enable that you can, in a very slick and easy way, do everything from, you know, subscribing to Spotify for yourself or for your family, or to just tap and get your cappuccino at 7 o'clock in the morning on your way to work. And ultimately, that's what translates to value.
And the foundational mission probably is to make people's lives a lot easier and more efficient. Are we beginning to see the extinction of the credit card?
I think the credit card as an instrument is not disappearing. I think it's changing. So I don't know if you've used Apple Pay, but you still have the digital imprint of the card, and you know, you've got a very slick and easy way of authorizing and authenticating the transaction. And so the card still exists, but it's a digitized version of the card. And if anything, what we're starting to see is a proliferation of these virtual cards across different environments and segments that fulfill different needs for people. And whether it's, you know, in my case, issuing a virtual card for my son to use when he does his gaming transactions, which, to be honest, I don't quite understand.
Yeah, can you imagine now why you struggle to sleep at night?
Yeah, or whether it's a subscription service that you have to fulfill. I think card still plays that role. It still has that function. And even though the form factor changes, so it's not necessarily a piece of plastic anymore, the utility around it's certainly still there.
That's true, the principle of utility. So if not plastic, what?
So
I mean, you talked about Apple Pay.
Yeah.
So these are what's available to us now, but take us 5-10 years down the road.
So I think what's important to recognize, Iman, is that the world, as we've had this convergence of industries, that's been true not just in the payment environment, but across different sectors and different industries. There's an amalgamation of industries, and in our case, you have to just look at Africa and look at the proliferation of mobile money, the way that different money transfer solutions has been stitched together, the way that new entrants are coming into the industry, and it's no longer just the banks that's trying to fulfill the promise of payment systems, but there's a whole host of new players in the fintech community and broader participants. And I think what that does is that it brings together multiple data points that talks to new solutions for consumers and how that's coming together. So if you think about the leather wallet in your purse that played such a central role our whole lives, I think that's becoming truly digital. And the road forward is a world in which your personal credentials, your digital identity, your passport information, your airline ticket, of which we start seeing, all of that becomes digitized. And the experience around purchasing goods or services, or the way that you bring together transactions, becomes much more efficient, because all of that information with your consent is made available that will assist with the purchase experience.
I can't let this conversation go without the concept of risk then, right? And our biggest fears is that our data gets shared, or that it gets sold on to other people who will just pester the life out of us. So how do you manage that?
So, and I think that's something the regulators take quite seriously. So I think personal identifiable information is absolutely critical to manage, and we need the right regulation to do so. And I think that the regulators are showing us the way. So the way that data sharing and data privacy is protected becomes a national concern, and something that we certainly would look to the authorities to regulate. From a MasterCard perspective, we don't keep personal identifiable info at all. I think that it becomes a function of understanding the application and looking towards the right authorities to manage the personal identifiable information in such a manner that is conducive to legislation and that is regulated appropriately.
Gabriel, so I got a message from my banker earlier today saying my card is going to arrive because my credit card has expired. Are we going to get to a place where we don't need to keep replacing the credit cards and have a limited lifespan?
Absolutely. So, and that's called tokenization. So the promise around tokenization is the digitization of your payment credential. And so instead of being issued with a new piece of plastic, or having to reissue your card when it's been stolen or it's lost, is that ability to, because it's tokenized, just very easily through a very efficient process be able to reissue that card in a digital manner. But from a physical form factor point of view, I think that as long as we carry plastics, at some point you would need replacement. There's wear and tear, depending on
how often you use it. Oh my goodness! Some people's credit cards just groan at the point of sale.
Yeah, but I think ultimately, Iman, we're on a journey to digitization.
Right.
In a digital world, those things become a little bit easier to manage.
Could there be a merger of cards and biometrics? So thumbprint, it's got all my digital information in there. I won't even ever need to interface with, forget about Apple Pay, anything else but my body.
I think that's what people do today, right, Iman? I mean, they think about what you do on your Apple device or your Samsung or your Google or Android device when you authenticate yourself and call it biometric. But, for the longest time, when you think about the payment experience, it's either been tapping a card or dipping a card or checking out on an online store. And I think the future is a future of checking in. Where you actually walk into a store and you're recognized. And at the back of that, this is a very important customer to ours, and somebody brings you the cappuccino and maybe the latest fashion that they know, adheres to your tastes. And so I think the consumer experience and that shopping experience will change fundamentally, as modernization.
It sounds good. It sounds a little bit scary as well. I'm not sure if I want AIs to know that much about me.
But that's your choice, right? And I think that's what.
Oh, could you go dark? Could you choose to go dark?
I think consumer choice plays a critical role in the way that certainly payments are made. At the end of the day, it's your explicit choice around how you spend, where you spend, and on what you spend. And as much as we are digitizing, the control or the choice more and more is moving towards the consumer. If I had a piece of plastic that I registered a subscription service for 15 or 16 years ago, it was quite difficult to, prevent people from charging, especially if it was a card on file or a remote-based payment. Where nowadays, if you think about it, if you have to make a payment, something pops up on your banking app, you exercise the choice when you want to pay it. Most of utility payments and bill payments and those kind of utility type payments are digitized, and you exercise the choice. You decide that I am going to pay this or I'm not going to pay it. And so I think that what is incumbent upon the industry is to make sure that that choice is well communicated and it's offered to the consumers through all of the new digital environments and infrastructure that we deploy.
Gabriel, it's been fascinating talking to you. Part of the theme of this year's conference is around keeping your eye on the horizons and beyond. And what you are saying certainly seems like the day after tomorrow. So thank you very much. Exciting conversation, if not a little bit scary, but thanks for shedding light and for shedding just some more details on what's possible in the digital space, especially when it comes to credit cards. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.